How we doing, guys? It is Monday, September 28th. Kind of late. Got off to a late start today, but we are here, and hopefully this will be uploaded in a timely fashion. So we are now going to take a look at the Seattle Seahawks versus the Detroit Lions game. That is correct. We are going to play the Lions from Motown, also known as Detroit. Parlez-vous français? Oui, un deux trois. No, I don't speak French very well. But anyway, so going into this game, this is, I talked about when the Seattle Seahawks were going to play against the Bears on how it was very difficult for a team to come back from a 0-3 record to make the playoffs. And I bring this up again because the Detroit Lions are basically in the situation the Seahawks were trying to avoid going into the Bears game. Because this is actually very surprising that the Detroit Lions are off to such a slow start when they had high expectations. This is a team that did go to the playoffs last year. They lost in the wild card game to the Dallas Cowboys. However, going into the final week of the season, the Seattle Seahawks had the Detroit Lions actually had an opportunity to get a higher seed if they defeated the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay on the final week of the season. They already had clinched the playoff berth. It was just a matter of what seed that they got. And since the NFC last year was so close, the parity, all the playoff spots were clinched. It's just was a matter of seeding. So the fact that the Detroit Lions are off to a slow start is a little surprising. For those of you who are Detroit Lions fans, first off, welcome, but you might be saying, well, actually, this is typical Detroit Lion football. And I can understand that because of I think it's, 8 years ago, the Detroit Lions were 0-16. So I understand that Detroit has not been known for a winning football team lately, but they have had their chances to get into the playoffs. And I believe they got into the playoffs, I want to say 2 or 3 years after they went to 0-16. It was the year they lost to the New Orleans Saints in the wild card round. So, for this season, they definitely are not meeting expectations. Taking a look at the NFC North standings, Green Bay with their victory tonight is 3-0, followed by the Minnesota Vikings 2-1, and then Detroit and Chicago are tied 0-3 at this point for last place. ESPN has right now Detroit in third of the division. I think that's because of points scored, because right now the Detroit Lions have scored an overall total of 56 points compared to Chicago's 46. So I think that's the reason why there's a tiebreaker. But they definitely have had their struggles in their first 3 games. They lost the first week in a close ball game to the San Diego Chargers on the road, 33-28, following another road game against the Minnesota Vikings. They fell by 10 points, 26-16. And then last night, the Sunday Night Football game, they fell to the Denver Broncos, 24-12. They do have a brutal schedule at the beginning of the game because this will be their 4th game and this is their 3rd road game of the season. So a very, very brutal schedule for the Detroit Lions. I'm wondering if that's playing a role. The Lions are led by Matthew Stafford at quarterback. This guy is off to a slow start this year, as I've already said before. It's probably one of the reasons why. And for every touchdown he's thrown interceptions. 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Detroit, their running game features a running back by the name of Amir Abdullah, who led the Lions in rushing 2 out of the 3 games. Matthew Stafford led in rushing in that 3rd game. But Detroit is known for their wide receivers. If Matthew Stafford can get comfortable in the pocket, he has some weapons and some toys to play in his arsenal. The first one is Megatron. Richard Sherman's Optimus Prime. But anyway, Megatron is the nickname of Calvin Johnson, a freak of nature. Going into this game, he has 199 passing yards. He's averaging 10 yards per catch. He's got 1 touchdown with a long of 28. He's had 2 catches that are plus 20 yards. a stat that I think is going to be crucial, and we'll talk more about this later, is yards after catch in this game. Because it's one thing for a defense to allow a pass to be completed. It's another thing for the receiver to get open and create big plays in terms of running down the field to score. And with Calvin Johnson being who Calvin Johnson is, he is probably one of those guys the Seattle Seahawks want to make sure that if he does catch the ball, they want to tackle right away, or else the yards after catch stat is going to escalate for the Detroit Lions, which will benefit them going into this game on Monday night. And then you have on the other side of the ball. Now, this is what makes this matchup very interesting. Okay, this is what makes this matchup very interesting. So the Legion of Boom just shut out the Chicago Bears. All right, a team that has a backup quarterback, 0-3, getting blown out. Went into that game almost giving up 40 points a game. Now they're dealing with somebody a little tougher. Matthew Stafford is a little bit better than Jimmy Clausen. The wide receiver core, the Lions have shown that they can at least march down the field throughout the season, unlike the Chicago Bears. So the Legion of Boom is going to have their work cut out for them guarding and defending Calvin Johnson on one side of the field. But who's on the other side of the field? Who's on the other side of the field is former Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl champion wide receiver Golden Tate. This is Golden Tate's homecoming. He left the Seattle Seahawks after they won the Super Bowl. I personally am not upset at Golden Tate leaving for two reasons. One, the Seahawks decided to go defense and pay Michael Bennett, Richard Sherman. I want to say Cam Chancellor that year. I could be off a year, but there was one other player on defense that the Seahawks signed. So they elected to go for defense. Golden Tate was drafted by Pete Carroll, during the Pete Carroll regime, and was there during the rebuilding years, the 7 to 9 year, and just slowly but surely built himself up along with the team. And he was a premier target for Russell Wilson when he was on the team. So when it was announced that he wasn't going to be with Seattle after they won the Super Bowl, I wasn't offended, and I mean, I shouldn't say offended. I wasn't upset at him because, number one, he already played well and pushed himself to the point where he could get paid, and the Seahawks elected not to pay him. So obviously, when a team's not going to allow you to pay you that much money, you're going to go someplace else. Also, I cannot fault Golden Tate for making this decision in the sense of where he went. He went to Detroit. So now, what is going to happen? The Detroit Lions have Calvin Johnson. So that's going to be the number one wide receiver. All football teams that the Lions play are going to be concerned about Calvin Johnson. Then you got Golden Tate. Calvin Johnson is going to be the reason why Golden Tate's stats go up throughout his career. Because while people are focusing more on Calvin Johnson, people are going to leave Golden Tate open. Which is why this presents a very unique matchup for the Seattle Seahawks. Because they know who Golden Tate is. They know what he's capable of doing. Because they've seen him. Golden Tate also knows the 12th man. He knows what it's like to play in Seattle. And I think this actually is going to be a very, very interesting advantage for the Lions. Here's why. And I know this is kind of comparing apples to oranges, but here's why. There was one time, I was in middle school, and I was playing basketball. And we were just playing a scrimmage game. We were just playing a scrimmage game, and one player on my team knew basically the entire team, everybody who was on the opposing team. And so at the beginning of the game, he goes up to the coach and says, hey, this guy can only shoot threes. This guy's good rebounder. This guy can only dribble the ball. This guy can't make long shots, but he's good down in the post. And he gives the coach a scouting report. And that's basically what the Lions have. They have that in Golden Tate. Do you really think Golden Tate's going to sit on the sideline and just be quiet? He's probably going to say, you know what, you probably want to do this because the 12th man's going to be loud over here. The defense is going to go over here. Because Golden Tate, for the most part, knows Pete Carroll's scheme. He knows it like the back of his hand. Why? Because he played on that team. So kind of an interesting advantage for the Lions in that regard. I also think that he is an advantage because Golden Tate, in my opinion, is an underrated receiver. And I say underrated not because of the whole, in case you can't remember, when the Seahawks were going into the NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers the year we won the Super Bowl, everybody kept saying, oh, our Seattle Seahawks have mediocre wide receivers, they don't have any deep threats. And I'm thinking to myself, when I heard that, not necessarily because of what Doug Baldwin was saying at that time, which is a story in itself, but when experts began to say that, I thought, okay, so the Seahawks have the #1 seed going into the playoffs. They're hosting this game, and the majority of their victories have come without Sidney Rice and Percy Harvin that particular year. Our two receivers who are deep threats, which means Doug Baldwin and Golden Tate and Jermaine Kearse are leading the pack. So how in the world are we mediocre and we're not as good as you say we are, yet we still can make plays going down the field? And that is the reason why when I heard that, I thought, you know what? I don't really mind that we don't have Sidney Rice and Percy Harvin at that time, because Golden Tate and company got it done. And that is the reason why I think he's underrated, because now you don't hear anything about Golden Tate. You hear Calvin Johnson, Matthew Stafford, and Calvin Johnson. You don't hear anything from Golden Tate. So watch for Tate to be a factor in this game. He's a very, very legit wide receiver. So that will, so it talks a little bit about the Lions. A storyline coming out of the Seahawks now. I got a comment during my comment video last time talking about how I did not mention Cam Chancellor coming back in my preview. Well, again, this is being filmed on Monday, September 28th. So this may or may not be a story later on in the week. However, Marshawn Lynch will have an MRI on his hamstring, and if he is out, that could be a big blow to the Seattle Seahawks offense. Now, against Chicago, rookie Thomas Rawls got 50% of the carries and ran for over 100 yards. That's good. So I'm really hoping that if Lynch is out, that Rawls can repeat that same performance, even though he's going up against a harder opponent, the Detroit Lions, in my opinion, a harder opponent in the Detroit Lions instead of the Chicago Bears. But that is a concern. As I mentioned before, Marshawn Lynch is the catalyst for the offense. And if he misses any time, it's going to be a huge burden for the Seahawks to get over. Pete Carroll likes to run. It's cool. During the Bears game, the Seahawks continued to run the ball despite Lynch being hurt. So that's good. The question is whether or not Rawls, in this case, or even our third running back, Fred Jackson, can still produce what Marshawn Lynch is capable of. And they might not be able to, because Marshawn Lynch is the freak of nature. So hopefully Marshawn Lynch will be okay to play on Monday night. The good thing is that since this is a Monday night game, Marshawn Lynch will have an extra day to heal up in order to see if he can play on Monday night at CenturyLink Field. So hopefully that is not a story by the end of the week. All right, so keys to the game. I want to see the Seattle Seahawks put pressure on the Detroit Lions in the sense of getting off to a fast start. I mentioned this in my recap with Chicago. If the offense can get off to a fast start, then you're going to put more pressure on Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford to connect, and even Golden Tate for that matter. And I bring this up because this leads into my second key. Make Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson beat you. If you can get those guys contained, and then you will be able to focus on Golden Tate. You'll be able to take the receivers out of the game. Their running back, Amir Abdullah, is not going to be a factor. Get off to a fast start. The 12s I'm going to tell you this right now. I've been to a Monday Night Football game. Seattle loves Monday Night Football games, particularly at home. At one point, Seattle actually had the best record in NFL history playing in Monday Night Football games. So the 12s are going to be there. The energy is going to be a bigger playoff atmosphere than what it was on opening day. Take advantage of it, okay? Take advantage of it. What you do not want to get into a shootout between Matthew Stafford, Golden Tate, and Calvin Johnson. Because at this rate, with the way the offense has been up and down, the Seahawks likely would lose that battle. So get off to a fast start, put some points on the board, make Matthew Stafford throw to Calvin Johnson. If they do that, the Seahawks' chances of winning are higher than based on what they've been doing before in terms of the low starts. This is not the Chicago Bears. All right, this was a potential playoff team that is off to a slow start that has way more talent than the Chicago Bears. So my prediction, I am going to take the Seattle Seahawks because this game is at home. As I said before, I've gone to a Monday Night Football game, and on a Monday Night Football game in Seattle, it's a completely different experience compared to a regular game day. Like I said, the crowd is louder. There is a bigger playoff atmosphere. It's just different. It's a complete different atmosphere compared to the regular Sunday games. It just is. There's something about it. So my prediction, I'm going to take the Hawks by 10 points. I think that they can win this game. But again, offense, don't get off to a slow start. So that will do it for the preview of the Seattle Seahawks Detroit Lions game. So before we go, I have two things. First, we'll do an NFL scoreboard. Today, Monday night, the Green Bay Packers defeated the Kansas City Chiefs 38-28. So week 3 of the NFL has been completed. Secondly, since the Seahawks play on Monday night, I'm actually going to be missing this game because I have rehearsal, which is fine. So I'm actually going to be doing my comment video on Sunday, and then I'll try to recap the game on Monday, and then we'll look toward the Seahawks-Cincinnati Bengals game on Tuesday of next week. So that will do it. Feel free to leave your comments. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you on Sunday. Go Hawks!